Welcome to Melt University's 2020 summer program. This year, our virtual intern program will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Here's your host, President and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Good afternoon, Melt University, virtual Melt University Summer 2020 students. Welcome back. We had a tremendous first week, great guests, great lunch and learn, tremendous traction, gaining participants left and right. Don't forget to share this with your fellow students, your fellow friends, your fellow classmates, your career counselors, your teachers, gaining a lot of traction. But today we have a very special treat and special guest for you. And in the spirit of the value of making and maintaining relationships, Tracy Wolfson and I met, I think, around 2005 and have grown an amazing friendship together, professional partnership, done a lot of many great things together. But it's an honor and a privilege to have Tracy as a four-time Emmy-nominated sports broadcaster and lead reporter for CBS Sports. You may have seen her on many Sundays with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo reporting from the sidelines of the NFL. She was the SEC sideline for many years and also shared many magic moments in March Madness, as well as NCAA Final Four. 16th year with CBS, which is amazing. Has covered Super Bowls, famous games, famous playoff games, anchored the CBS Sportsdesk, hosted At the Half, and her own show tackling the trends. She is a proud graduate of the University of Michigan with a degree in communications. She's going to talk today about her career path, which included MSG Network, ESPN, and then CBS. And the most important job that she has is being a tremendous mother to her three sons, amazing sons, Dylan, Ari, and Evan. But Tracy, thank you so much for joining virtual Melt University Summer 2020. We are sure glad to have you today.
Oh, Vince, it is my pleasure. I was so honored to be asked and just so happy that I could be here, even if it is virtually.
Well, we've had a lot of traction. And like I said, the great thing is that our students are able to listen and learn and and make notes and reach out and build relationships with people at your level and your esteem level. And so, and the thing today is we want to talk about the careers that you see on the horizon in broadcasting. You see the evolution of sports coverage, like we're seeing with the PGA Tour and like we're seeing with NASCAR, and sort of where all of those trends are going. A lot of things that we like to cover in our podcast are the college campus is the ultimate professional lab. I want to talk about your formative experiences at Michigan and then where you see the opportunities. We want to talk about obstacles because we talk to our kids all the time about, hey, life is not linear. Obviously, we're all experiencing that phenomenon right now. You know, we're all cruising along going into March Madness and our Final Four. Melt was going to activate its 18th Final Four, and then all of a sudden, you know, the world stopped spinning, the record scratched. And so what we want to do is help equip kids in a post-COVID world on where those opportunities are, where those obstacles are, and then talk about the value of maintaining and building these professional relationships, you know, and where you see those opportunities. But let's talk about for a minute your path from New York. You grew up in New York, Congers, New York, to the University of Michigan. Sort of what led you to choose University of Michigan, and then what opportunities did you find there? Did you have a passion for sports early on that led you into this path?
Yeah, so I think, when I talk to my kids and I'm like, what do you want to do when you grow up? They have no idea. I mean, my son is graduating fifth grade tomorrow, and in his yearbook, he wrote, I know it's not going to happen, but I would love to be a professional NBA player.
Right.
It's not going to happen. And
hey, Tracy, do we have your mic? You guys good?
Oh, can you hear me?
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. So I heard you were saying your son wants to be a professional NBA player,
right.
which is a worthy
no one
pursuit.
knows what they want to do this young in their
Right.
life. right? But
Right.
I actually did. I actually was 7, 8, 9 years old. I was a huge tomboy. I didn't have brothers. My father wasn't a huge sports fan. I just was obsessed with sports in every sense of
Hmm.
the word. I love watching it. I love talking about it. I love playing it. And I remember watching the NBA Inside Stuff. And if a lot of you watched The Last Dance, well, you saw Willow Bay and Ahmad Rashad. They were on the NBA Inside Stuff back then. That's who I watched. And I looked at Willow Bay and I said, you know what? That's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to talk sports all the time. And I kind of, from that moment on, which even though it was so young, I said, no matter what, I want to do something in the sports world. Love to be a reporter. I don't know what it takes to get there, whether I could, but no matter what, I want to stay involved in sports, which led me to Michigan. Fortunately, I had the grades to get in. I wanted a big time sport school that could keep me involved in every sense of the word, whether it was just attending the sports or getting involved on campus. Now, they did not have a good communications department. It wasn't
Hmm.
like a Syracuse with Newhouse or a Medill at Northwestern. They had a journalism program at the time. Halfway through my collegiate career, and when I was a junior, they actually closed the program. So I took no classes that had anything to do with broadcasting or reporting.
Wow.
They had a TV station, WOLV. I really didn't get involved with it. I remember it was just timing wise, and it was just difficult to manage. And I was also working to make some money and pay off my school, and I just couldn't fit it in. But what I did do was I got some great internships through the communications department. And
Hmm.
one of them was my junior year going into my senior year, and it was for the HBO Sports. And it was in New York. I made a lot of contacts there, as you know. I mean, contacts are so important in terms of trying to get, that first job, that next job. And um, I made a lot of contacts, and they all said to me, you know what, when you go back to Michigan, we work for CBS also. We work for ABC. They were all freelancers. Come and do a game with us. Be a runner. Get people water and coffee and just help us out and get some experience. So as soon as they got back on campus and I got back on campus, that's exactly what I did. I did it for football. I did it for basketball, and one of the broadcasters I was getting water and coffee for was Vern Lundquist, who I
Wow.
later wound
Wow.
up being my partner for 10 years. So I did that, and I made some connections at CBS and got really in there. And they started hiring me to do more and more stuff while I was still at the University of Michigan. I worked a bunch of figure skating shows that were in the area. I went and I had a chance. I graduated a semester early, but I stayed on campus. So I left and I did March Madness from New York, and then I got to go to my first Final Four and work there. And I did whatever I could. I answered phones in trucks. I cued the band at the Final Four in '97. That
Wow.
was my job.
Wow.
And did whatever I could to just, make these connections and get my foot in the door. And it did lead me to my first job, which was as a researcher for CBS Sports. Now, it wasn't in front of the camera, which I wanted to do, but I had no experience in front of the camera. And I had no idea how to get that experience in front of the camera. I didn't know anyone that even did it. I didn't know who to call or how to figure it out. I didn't have any mentors growing up that I can look up to. So I took a very roundabout path in where I was I worked at CBS Sports as a researcher for a year, had the chance to do Olympics and get research for, broadcasters like Michelle Tafoya or Bonnie Bernstein or Leslie Visser. And then I left because I wanted to be a broadcaster. I also tried to take the next step, which is considered a BA, which is a broadcast associate. And I remember going into the office of my then executive producer, and I said to him, okay, I'll take the next step. I want to be on air, but I'll do the production route if I have to. And I go to interview with him, and he says to me, I know you know sports, and I know you love sports, but not like the guys do.
Ooh.
Yes. And so that was my first kind of taste of, okay, I'm a female in this male dominated industry.
Hmm.
And I have to work extra hard.
Hmm.
And, at that point I said, you know what? That's a good little kick in the butt. I'm out of here, right? I don't need to let me go do what I really want to do. So it kind of, it gave me that kick in the butt to leave, because had I stayed there, I probably would have wound up being a producer and on that track and maybe never really gone after my original goal. And so I left, and right when I left, I got an offer to be an agent for a year and take over and work for an agency representing broadcasters. 9 to 5 job in New York. And I was like, you know what? I don't have a job right now. Not a bad opportunity. Let's see the other side of the business. What you need to sound like, how to put a tape together, who you need to send your tapes to, what you should look like, what are the good reporters out there doing, and just a different side of the business. I did that for a year, and I got a girl by the name of Jenna Wolf. You might know her. She's
Oh
been
yeah.
around for a
Yeah.
long time doing MSG and Fox Sports and the Today Show. And I got her a job going from, I think it was Binghamton or Buffalo at the time, to Philly. Top 5 market, my
Hmm.
age. And I'm like, oh no, like I
Hmm.
really got to get out of here. I got to get moving. She's already in Philadelphia. I haven't even gotten in front of the camera yet. So that was my next kind of step. I sent a cover letter. Yes, we wrote cover letters back then
Right.
to Bob Wolf, legendary broadcaster at News 12 Long Island. He loved my cover letter and my writing so much. He said, I'll find a job for you. Hired me as one of his sports producers. And every time the reporter would go out and do his stories, I went out with him and I made a fake tape. Nothing ever aired, but I got experience out there. Every story he did, I did. And I put a fake tape together and finally had enough stuff. I took one class in shooting and editing, and I sent it all across the country, and I got one job in Trenton, New Jersey. And,
Wow.
you throw enough stuff against the wall, something's going to stick. And it did. And that was my first opportunity of being in front of the camera. Never, ever, had the opportunity to do that. They hired me not knowing that. I was there for 2 full years doing 5 minutes of sports a day. It was a mom and pop shop, never live, by the way. And then got
Wow.
an opportunity to work for MSG Network. And my first live game was for ESPN. So talk about being thrown to the wolves at that point. It was a crazy roundabout route that you don't often see right now. But I got so many different experiences and learned so much along the way that has really helped me as a broadcaster, because not only did I learn, you know, I knew once you put me in front of a camera, I watched enough people growing up to say, this is how you do the job. But obviously you needed the advice, you needed help, you needed some critiques. I also needed that side of the business where you look as a producer almost. You visualize it, and um, that's a different side of your brain that works. That really makes you a better reporter, seeing it from a
Hmm.
different perspective. The
Hmm.
writing side of it as well. And so I was at ESPN for a year, MSG for a year, and then got the opportunity to work for CBS. And as they say, the rest is history.
Well, that's amazing. So you've touched on a
I know
lot of.
sorry, it's a long-winded story, but
No, no, no. It's amazing because you have touched on a lot of things that I want to unpack during this podcast, because we talk to our students a lot about this. I talk to the students a lot about this, and I'll give you some sort of headers and then we'll unpack them. One is pursue your passion with great zeal, which it sounds like. Talk about pursuing your passion for just a minute, because what an amazing story of the relentless pursuit of your passion.
yeah, well, that I knew it. I knew I wanted to be involved in sports, and I wanted. They say, you go into something you love, right? You never feel like you work a day in your life,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's true. And I knew I'd find joy in it and entertainment in it. And I covered some news at one point when I was in Trenton at that first job, and I knew that's not where I wanted to go. I knew my route was more the entertainment, bringing joy to others. Not that, by the way, sports does turn into news sometimes, and we're going to see a lot of that probably in the coming year. But,
Hmm.
um, I just kind of knew I wanted to be surrounded by that. I had the passion for it. And whether it was in front of the camera or behind the camera, that's what I was going to want to stay involved in. So, that passion fully drove me to where I wanted, to be at the end.
Hmm. Hmm. We tell our students that no does not spell the word no. It's the first two letters of the words not yet. And so you obviously the personification of that. The next thing to unpack is the value of relationship building and follow up. To your point, you're getting Vern Lundquist coffee. I'm driving, when I'm a student at Auburn, Dick Vitale to the airport, Paul Feinbaum to the airport, and then all of a sudden we're in business together. We're doing deals together. Talk about that pure value of relationship building, staying in touch, following up, and then waiting to take that shot when the timing is there.
Yeah. Well, this is that type of business because connections get you everywhere. Everyone wants to get into this field. You unfortunately have to know someone to know someone to know someone to get in,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's the truth of the matter. But you have to put yourself in the position to meet those people, to be able to get to know them, to have those connections, because they're not just going to be handed to you. So you need to put yourself in that position to be able to make those connections and those relationships that are going to help you along the way. And then when you make those relationships, keep those relationships. And also, not everyone's going to form those relationships. You need to be a good partner, a good teammate, a good employee, a good person that someone's going to want to go to bat for you and have those relationships and keep in contact with you and help you out and open some doors for you. So there's a lot to that, and constantly tap into them and keep following up and showing the interest and thanking them. And there's so much to it because I get so many people reaching out of wanting me to help, and I love it. It's like one of my passions because I want to keep giving back. But the ones who, are just sending a note and feel they have to because their grandma's mom gave it to someone who gave it to
Right,
someone. Then there's
right.
the others who are like, I want to do this. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to do anything I can. And how can you help me? And then I'm going to take what you're going to give me and I'm going to run with it. And then I'm going to make my next relationship and I'm going to run with that. And it goes in a full cycle. And it's you keep on giving because one of the people, Leslie Visser, is a mentor of mine now. And people
Hmm.
ask, who's your
Hmm.
mentor growing up? I had none. She's that person that I was able to tap into right away who constantly gives me feedback, constantly gives me help. I have a director who will, give me a little like criticism at times, which is what
Right.
you need. And then I have those people of, hey, can you help me get here? I'd like to get here one day. How do I do that? And so I think, it's really important to make those contacts, but to keep up with those contacts to show that you appreciate them and you care and you're serious about what you want to do. And that goes also with just being a good person, being around, being a great teammate, being a really good person to work with and alongside, being willing, to get someone coffee and, without
Hmm.
rolling your eyes or picking up, hanging up a poster or nothing's
Hmm.
too, little for you to do. And I just had this conversation with friends because going into say the medical field, I have a lot of doctor friends, much different than going into broadcasting. You have to
Hmm.
get into med school. Someone can only help you so much.
Hmm.
This is a different business. This is really all about making those connections, getting those experiences, and tapping into those connections when you're looking to move to the next step.
Well, so you just hit on a big thing that we talk about a lot. When somebody reaches out to you, what makes it stand out to you, as you mentioned, versus the ones that don't? Because what we're trying to do, as you said, it's a hyper competitive field. Everybody wants to be in sports and events and these types of things. Secondly, in a COVID world, there's more people, unfortunately, are out of work right now in our industries, and so it's going to even make the pool competitively even bigger and harder for entry level people. So we're trying to say, hey, we got to get you in that 5 percentile. You get that 5 percentile, you make enough cash, you're going to get the fish on at some point. What stands out when somebody reaches out to
Yeah, I think it goes back to that old school cover letter in a sense,
you?
where
Hmm.
you talk about your passion and your love and why you want my help and where you want to go and what I can do for you and what you're looking for. But I think it's also um, just understanding, you know, kind of what you're asking too. I mean, you can only do so much, and I believe me, I wish I can get everyone an internship,
Mm.
at
Right,
CBS
right.
Sports. But as you know, there's 8 opportunities and thousands of candidates. But be willing to kind of take all the ideas and the advice I give, run with it,
and then follow up with it and say, oh, I did reach out to blah, 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 and this is what happened. And what do you think? How should I go from here? Just show that you've taken those steps, that you're a go-getter, that you're willing to make the effort. That's the key. When I see someone who's willing to make that effort, who then follows up with me and says, hey, just giving you a heads up, this is what I've done. Just want to keep you updated. If anything else opens up, let me know, but I'm really excited about these opportunities. Let's talk soon. And just to say, hey, I have been working. I have reached out to this one and that one. I have been, going on Synopsis Media and searching through opportunities. What do you think of this opportunity? Would this be something good for me? Where else should I look? I reached out to this news director and he never got back to me. How do you think I should approach it? Those are all great questions, but it shows that you're working hard. That's what it shows. And I think that's really, to me, that's what stands out when someone shows the effort consistently, that they're, what they're looking to do and what they've been doing since the last time I spoke with them.
So to our listeners, and you just hit it right on the head, is what we say: effort, ladies and gentlemen, effort. Tracy, we have a saying: it's only as important as you make it, because every type of communication that you're having with people like yourself and the people you refer to and people like myself, it's a constant rolling job audition. We're monitoring how you're responding to these situations and say, well, hey, is this worth me making an investment of my time or my energy or my money to introduce this person or bring them in as a new employee? So listeners, effort is only as important as you make it. Tracy, I like to say, I get a lot of resumes and somebody will say, well, attach this to my resume and I need to make X amount of dollars a year. And I automatically flush it. I'm like, well, you haven't done any research on me, the company. Tell me about yourself. Why would you add value? And so it's all about as important as you make it. But I want to transition back to something very poignant that you pointed out, is that when that person said, this is a guy's world, this is a guy's dominated thing, and you felt that sting, or you felt something. But talk about, because we do talk about, like, hey, it's going to be obstacles. You're going to get thrown off the saddle. It's not that you're going to get thrown off, because you will, but how you get back on it. Life is not linear. But talk about how you use that as a positive experience for yourself and how it motivated you, and then how you translated that energy into your pursuit.
Yeah, I mean, it motivated me because I realized right then and there, as I had said a little earlier, that I had to work extra hard and I had to go out and prove myself that, yeah, I'm a female, but I know just as much as the guys do. And I will work just as hard, if not harder. And, I realize that, and I use that everywhere I go, and every step of the way that I use that slight I felt. And it is true, and I think it's getting better. But, women do have to work extra harder to prove that they know what they know in the sports world. And I think there's a lot to that too, as a female. And, I think you have to kind of just not draw attention to the fact that you're a woman, right? Like,
Right.
you're just like anyone else doing your job. And we have that We Need to Talk show, which I really pride ourselves on, because we are, 5 women at a time. We have, I think, 10 or 12 hosts already, but 5 women at a time talking sports. We talk everything, but we bring a unique perspective. We bring a female perspective, which is very different than a male perspective at times. And so our voice, could be heard in a different manner. And so I've used that. I've used what I dealt with that former executive, and constantly, and I saw this a lot in the SEC when I was growing and learning and maturing, that, it's all about, to be honest, knowing your stuff, putting all the effort and time to make you the best out there, so that there is no attention drawn to you. So when every time you're going out to ask a question, it's the best question that you could be asking. It makes sense. You know the sport. You're asking exactly what Nick Saban expected you to ask, which, while it might be tough, he's still going to answer it because he respected what you asked.
Right. Well, talk about the show We Need to Talk for a minute. Talk about who's on there. Talk about how that's a tremendous networking opportunity for our students and our listeners to tune in and follow up with all of your colleagues. Because I love the show. I love the format. So talk about it a little bit, and because I think it's really going to be a great resource for our students.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that our executives came to us and said, and Leslie Visser was involved, and I had some conversations of, hey, there's nothing out there with just a female voice, and how, women can bring a different perspective to the sports world. But what's so unique about it is you have everyone for so many different walks of life with so many different experiences, all combined and connected through sports. You have, the reporter as myself or Dana Jacobson or Aditi Kinkabwala. You have an Andrea Kramer. And then you have Summer Sanders and Dara Torres, former Olympians, Lisa Leslie and Swin Cash, former WNBA and collegiate stars and Olympians in their own right. You have Muhammad Ali's daughter and Layla Ali.
Right.
You have Katrina Adams, USTA, president of the USTA and former professional tennis player. Amy Trask, former CFO of the Raiders. I mean, just different perspectives when you have a topic. And that's what I love about it, because we can take, as we did this past week on a very powerful show, we can take what's happening in our world and all have very different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa Leslie and Katrina Adams are going to have a lot different things to say than myself and Andrea Kramer, but we're all together there to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, all these shows allow us to do that. And we touch on female sports, but we're talking on sports in general. And we do have a different perspective on whether it was kneeling, a few years ago when that started with Kaepernick, or whether it was the Ray Rice situation, or whether right now what's happening in our world. I think then you just take, hey, NFL free agency, and you take what's going to happen in the NBA and what's going to happen in the WNBA, what's the future there. And so we've really had so many different discussions. It really allows for different voices. And I've learned so much being around these different perspectives and different women and different walks of life. And they've learned from me and I've learned from them. And I think we're not only better broadcasters for it, but I am a much better person having been a part of this show and working alongside these women.
Yeah, that is amazing, because sports truly is a metaphor or microcosm for what's going on in society right now. It's a metaphor for life. I'm very excited about the evolution of the sports industry. The reason that we're doing this program for these kids is that they can be a part of this evolution. They can be a part of this revolution. They possess the tools. But let's talk about those tools for a minute. And I want you to stress this to our listeners, to on your social media platforms. We all had a good time in college, and thank goodness there were no, Facebook around when I was a student at Auburn. But talk about the value of how you present your brand in the social media environment, and then talk about the value of using LinkedIn as a tremendous networking and relationship building tool as well, because we want to impress that to the kids that, hey, you got some great tools here, but they're very, very powerful. So be very careful how you use these powerful tools.
I think you hit, the nail on the head on that when you're saying, be careful how you use it. And I'll tell you, when I see a new broadcaster or someone's hired by CBS or there's a new reporter on TV, what do? You immediately go to their social media to check out who they are, right? Or you see someone just got hired and you're like, I wonder about this person. But as soon as I start looking through those pictures and I'm seeing things that maybe shouldn't be out there, it takes away the legitimacy in a sense. Right away, I'm taken aback and not necessarily going to trust this person until they go out there and prove it. So already right there, you're behind the eight ball. And that's what I've noticed, because, I always say to people, like, just don't draw attention to yourself. Go out there and just do what you do and be yourself and be who you are. And, yes, it's all about building your brand now, but build it in this positive light, this positive way that you can, that everyone in America can relate to you, or at least, the majority of America can relate to you. And, I think I think that's really important. The social media side. I know we've all made mistakes in our life, and I'm sure when you were, when some of these kids, when they were kids, they put out things on social media. There's a delete button. You can take off what you don't want on there anymore, clean it up, because that's immediately what employers see. And I know it's something that I look at, and
Right. Right.
it's not how you want to start your career out. And then I think on the other side of it, there's a few things to it. I mean, when you talk about, Googling or checking people out or tweeting or checking out your Twitter and all of this, it's a really dangerous game to play.
Mhm.
And when you do get into that marketplace, you know, you got to know who to listen to and who not to listen to.
Mhm.
And, I tell you, I don't look at my tweets or my responses, or I don't Google myself, because nothing good comes out of it.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
It's some guy sitting in his underwear in the basement that,
Right.
tweeting about me. So,
Right.
I think you have to be very wary too when you get into that, certain space or level of your career, to know who to listen to and who not to listen to.
Mhm.
And I think it's also, like you mentioned, the LinkedIn. I mean, that is a huge networking tool, really important. And I put myself on it, even though I don't really utilize it how I could utilize it. I don't need to right now, but I think it's important for me
Mhm.
to be on there for other people to utilize me. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are on it that you can tap into. And then, also going back to the connections you have at your university, the university you come out of, that's the connections you should also tap into, because everyone loves to hire people that graduated from their university.
It's
Go
that
back.
is that the that's the lowest hanging fruit, that emotional connection. Hey Tracy,
Yeah.
fellow Michigan grad, I followed your career. I'd like to reach out to you. So you've got that emotional connection, and you see that they've made that effort to research who you are.
Yeah. And by the way, every university has some sort of networking connection to help you get
Mhm.
into the career field. I know Michigan just built a huge career center solely for that, and has been urging all, former alums to get involved in it. So I'm
Mhm.
sure every university has that. You just have to do a little research, right? And put a
Mhm.
little, as you said, effort into it.
Mhm. Yeah,
Getting
you're
these
just
jobs, it's all about the effort you want to put in. You'll get out of it.
spot on, spot on. All right, so I'll tell you a couple of a quick Leslie Visser stories, and then we're gonna segue into a couple of fun questions. My first encounter with Leslie Visser, I'm a student assistant in the Auburn Sports Information, and this famous reporter from the Boston newspaper came down and spent the day with David Housel covering an Auburn game. We won. We rolled Toomer's Corner, and part of my job was to escort Leslie Visser to Toomer's Corner in like 1982 or 83. So, okay, fast forward when Melt lands their first Final Four in 2003 to activate on behalf of the Coca-Cola Company, I said, hey, let's get the most famous reporter, sideline reporter for CBS, and let's build an entire campaign around her, Leslie Visser.
Oh
And
my
so,
God.
so for many decades, so next time you talk to her, but that's the value of building relationships. I'll never forget that encounter at Tumors. And so, segueing into we close, you've covered many famous games, many famous coaches, many famous plays, many famous players. You work alongside you're the trio of royalty, you, Romo, Nance. But give us a couple of favorite anecdotes. Maybe, I love your interviews. You never waver with these coaches. I mean, you're in there jockeying. You have this very strong intro into the Belichick's and the Sabans, but give us some fun story of who, what, where of, because this in this illustrious career of yours.
Well, you talk about those interviews. I actually loved interviewing Nick Saban. People thought I was crazy, but
All right.
we had this great relationship behind the scenes where we would meet with the coaches before, game day. And, he's very different than he is on the field and at a
Mm-hmm.
media press conference than he is, behind the scenes. And he respected us. He respected Vern so much, and Gary and myself. And so we had a lot of fun and laughs even. And so I think we had a really great rapport, and it showed on the field. And he was okay with me asking those difficult questions that I needed to ask. and answered them appropriately. But, on the flip side, you mentioned Bill Belichick, and, going into the NFL, you're thinking, oh, he's kind of like Nick Saban, right? They're really close. They're, the top of their game. And, um,
Right.
and I was so wrong. So, it has not changed, right? So I've covered the NFL now 6 years or whatever it is, and I am still terrified of interviewing him.
So
And
Belichick's persona is really consistent throughout.
oh my God, it doesn't change. And so that's what it's like when I sit in a meeting with him or I have to interview him at halftime. And now our interviews aren't broadcast live, they're off camera. But,
Hmm.
you go into these interviews and you're like, Coach, Tom Brady got sacked 5 times in the first half. How are you going to protect him better? And he just stares at you like with this look,
Right.
nothing. You get nothing. And you're like standing there for like 10 seconds and you're like, what do I do? Do I wait longer? Do I just say thank you and walk away? Or do I ask another question?
Right.
And
Right. Right.
it's so uncomfortable. And usually he just says, you got to do a better job. He's got to do a better job. And that's
Oh my.
all you get out of him. And it's still to this day, 6 years later. Although I think I got a chuckle out of him this past year for something I asked. But then it just goes back to that same old stare. So, that's kind of a little behind the scenes of myself and Bill Belichick.
So I guess you could say at least he's consistent, right?
He's extremely consistent and he's so good at what he does and he's so smart, but he is never going to budge in terms of that.
Yeah, and we've worked with Coach Saban as well, and to your point, um, he's not, and I think part of that's obviously he's a great guy, humble roots. Miss Terry, kind of keeps that edge off of him a little bit, but that's the same interactions that we've had. So favorite play that sticks out in your coverage of all of these. I mean, obviously you've covered Final Fours, you've covered Super Bowls, like famous playoff games. Like give us one of your favorites.
Oh, it's so hard to pick one, but it's got to be the kick six. I mean, that still ranks you're right up there. People say, "What about the Chris Jenkins? What about the Sweet 16 going from losing to a 16 seed, not the Sweet 16, losing to a 16 seed for Virginia,
Right.
and then coming back and winning it the next year, which I was a part of that whole thing." But it's still the kick six. Auburn, Alabama. I mean, it doesn't get better than that because we all know college football, and there's something so special about it. Even having covered the NFL for so long now. There's nothing like college football. And so when you
Hmm.
couple in, the passion and the pageantry, and then what takes place and the rivalries and the fans and the players that were involved and the coaches that were involved. And, that's never, I can't see anything, taking over that top spot because to me, that was an incredible one to be a part of. The stories that go alongside it, me trying to grab Chris Davis from the top of
Right.
his shoulders and, almost getting Aubie, like, jumping on top of us. And I mean, it was just everything was so good. And then like you said, rolling of Toomer's corner and my kids were on hand for that one.
I didn't
And
realize that. I didn't
my
realize that.
husband with my 2 little boys and my other son was not, there, but just a memorable one. I can't imagine anything ever, surpassing that.
Well, I knew you'd throw me an Auburn nod, which I appreciate, but it's a great story because like some of my best friends on the planet, we were all there. You, Vern,
Yeah,
Craig Silver,
right.
who's the director, and the odds of this whole thing unfolding. And my son, Carter, who was 13 at the time, believe it or not, was actually on the field standing with Coach Bill Battle and Mary Battle, who's the athletic director of Alabama at the time. And we're all thinking we're heading into overtime.
Right.
This unbelievable thing occurs. I look on the field because I was on my way down. He was already there. Then I can't find him. Turns out he ran off with the Alabama team because they were like, get us out of here. But I will tell you this, yeah, like I said, you've witnessed a lot of sporting events and moments. I have, but there was nothing. I don't know if I've ever seen that energy because of the spontaneity of how it occurred. So and the emotion and passion of college football. I mean, you're right. I mean, the pros in the Super Bowl, but there's nothing that will ever take the place in the emotion and the passion of the pageantry of college football. But I'll have to tell you, what an enjoyable time today. Students, guys and ladies, I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to it over and over again because it's inspirational, it's educational, and if you want to pick a role model to pursue in our industries or ancillary industries, you won't get a better one than Tracy Wolfson, and she is a dear friend. And Tracy, thank you so much for just, we could talk forever on this, and thank you so much. What an honor and privilege for you to join virtual Melt University Summer 2020, and we just appreciate it. You stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you on the sideline soon.
Well, Vince, thank you. And if any of your students need anything, you know where to find me.
We really appreciate it. Tracy Wolfson, 4-time Emmy nominated sports broadcaster, lead reporter for CBS Sports. Thank you so much for joining virtual Melt U Summer 2020.
Thanks, Vince. Hope you enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with another edition of Melt University 2020.